The Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. And using proven tax deferral strategies such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. We're also streaming on the Expert CRE Secrets podcast, as well as the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel, Living in Newport Beach YouTube channel. So go hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell over there. Today, we have a very special guest. He is a doctor by trade turned real estate professional. We're going to talk about taxes. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about the market. Please welcome Dr. Tom Burns. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tom, you told me you were in Austin. Market's going good, but also declined about 15%.
Right.
Is the world going to end here soon, or what's the deal?
No, man, life's waves, right? It's up and down. That's real estate. It's up and down. Developers go crazy and buy airplanes, then they go bust and start new companies, right? So the world's not going to end. We're certainly in a pause phase. In my world, we develop apartments, and we paused a bit or slowed down, as a lot of people are. Like we talked about, before we started recording, apartment starts are down 76%. That's a fair amount, but they're going to have to get picked up because people keep getting born and people still need rental. So it is just a normal part of the cycle where things pause, and depending on how low they go, sometimes you really make your money coming out the other end. I don't know if that's going to happen this time or not, but we're not worried. We're just working harder right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's been a lot of different real estate developers, investors, syndicators that have pulled together, capital, came in and bought these properties at really high valuations. I would say low cap rates, throughout the past couple of years, right? I mean, interest was so low, debt was so cheap, it made a bunch of sense. A lot of people kind of got caught up in this whole 1 to 3 year bridge debt with floating rates and all this kind of stuff. How have you guys either I don't want to say fallen into that trap, but did you guys, fall into that trap as well? And how are you guys navigating that? Or did you steer clear of it? And what were some signs or something that you saw that you're like, this is not a good idea?
Yeah, and it's kind of a high, we're gray haired and my partner just has less hair. So we've been around, been through 2001. We've been through the GFC in 2008 and 9. And so, our primary focus is to have fixed debt. And if it's a development where it's not a HUD loan, which is fixed from the start, we will have bridge debt or bridge to perm. And if there's any kind of bridge, it's got rate caps. Now, if you try to buy a rate cap today, you're gonna empty the vault. But so we early on, if we had something, we made sure there was a cap. Mostly fixed term debt. And when times start getting like this, especially if you can sort of feel it, it's just lower leverage. A lot of stuff. In some of our HUD deals, we get 83% loan to value, and that's really great for cash flow. But when times go bad, you want to make sure you can make debt service. So we've increased the equity, lower loan to value, very picky about our projects. In fact, probably about 15 months ago in late January, early February, before rates had really started going nuts, we had a really robust pipeline. And we have a team meeting every Monday, and we look at the pipeline, and I didn't like it. My partner didn't like it. They all looked really good. But we decided to slash that pipeline and try to pick what we thought was only the best of the best. So our intention is to do less projects this year until we know where things are going. And so that's mostly how we tried to avoid that, is to try to be prudent. And you know what? I've made so many mistakes in the past. I learned lessons in 2001, and I thought I was smarter in 2008, and I kind of knew how things were going to go. Of course, there were blind spots that I missed. So I'm kind of wondering what I'm going to miss on this one, but trying to use the experience to dig the foxhole as deep as possible, at least.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing, is I was alive for, the 2001 and the 2008, but I hear, the stories of back in the 1980s, right? Now, you can look back and you can look at the Depression and all this kind of stuff, right? And see kind of like some trends, but not living through it. You don't necessarily have that experience. But it seems like every single time there's been something different that has like triggered the event that like no one accounts for. And it's just like, boom, like out of nowhere. So it's like at some point, you kind of answered the question, but do you just like, all right, like what's going to pop today? Like,
right.
And how do you prepare for something that you don't know what you don't know?
Yeah, you can't. That's a great way to put it. You can't prepare for everything. Who knew there would be a world pandemic? And who's predicting banking crises and whatever the next one's going to be in the next few months, right? Something's going to come. So you have to kind of try to have your rules, try to keep things conservative. There's that urge to make pro formas look good to investors, and that's a slippery path to go down. You want to let the numbers be what the numbers are. And to answer one of your previous questions, over the last few years, or really the last 10, 12 years, you could throw a dart, at least in the apartment industry, you could throw a dart and pick a good project. And I was told by a number of people that started their apartment buying journey deep into the last 10 years or so. And I was told by them that it's easy and apartments never go down in value, and they're always safe, and you don't have to worry about the debt because it's always there. And so I think those are some of those folks that you were talking about that bought at low cap rates and have high leverage and bridge debt. And that's going to create some opportunity for some folks in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are, at least the seasoned people are kind of just like waiting. They're just excited.
Oh, absolutely. I just spoke with I had a guy at I threw an event a week or two ago, and guy there had 10,000 units, and he made most of his money, surprise, 2008, 9, 10, 11, when he purchased. He's not buying anything right now, but he's just like licking his chops. He's doing this, he's waiting. So the seasoned folks are waiting, and there's a lot of opportunistic funds out there waiting to pounce.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a developer, you guys are buying land, or are you guys buying projects? Or tell us a little bit more about your strategy.
Yeah, sure. And it's a bit of a hybrid, but often we'll buy a piece of land. We'll entitle it if we need to. Often we'll buy something that's mostly entitled. We'll buy the land and develop a project and do the horizontal and vertical improvements, and that's kind of our value add, right? Sometimes we'll partner with somebody who's already bought the land. I prefer to own the land. You control the project a little bit more when you own the land, but we'll partner with some larger JV partners of ours that we've worked with over the last 10 years, and we bring in new product. And so it takes a little more, maybe a little more experience, a little more holding your breath, crossing your fingers. I don't know. We do the best we can with the projected numbers, but it's a good 3 years before those properties are stabilized and ready to go. It's not like buying something that's already on the ground. The flip side is everything in our project's brand new once it's all there and up and running. So development's been good to us. We got to develop new apartments. We're still roughly 4 million apartment units short. So
wow. What's the number one secret to developing a successful apartment project?
Probably conservative underwriting and fixed debt.
Yeah.
Things change. Nobody can predict the future. I have looked and looked, and my crystal ball has never cleared up. It's always cloudy. So it is being conservative, and hopefully the under-promise yourself and your investors, and hopefully overproduce, because it doesn't always work out.
What's the number two secret to that conservative underwriting piece? Let's dive into that a little bit. What's like one or two things that you make sure that you do on every single underwriting that makes sure you're having that conservative?
We'll take whatever the market numbers are, right? I mean, cap rates are what they are, interest rates are what they are, and so we assume at least 100, sometimes 150 basis point expansion if we're planning on selling. Sometimes we'll build a project and we'll have sort of this projected sale at 5 years, and sometimes it's a projected recap and refinance and cash flow on down the road. We expect some expansion of cap rates. We try to use historical rent growth numbers. And actually had a young employee who had only been working since the GFC, and was telling me was putting in rent numbers, saying it was really conservative on the rent numbers. And she put in a number that was, for the time, I gave her a project, told her to go back. I said, you go back and look at the last 20 years and what the average rent growth was over the last 20 years. And it was about half of what she was projecting as conservative. So point being, we try to not predict super rent growth. We try to fix our debt. And if it's, we try to fix our debt, period. And then the last thing we do is we run sensitivity tables, because you know what happens, right? So we run sensitivity tables for if occupancy goes down to 80% or rent growth stays flat or goes down. We want to see that we can make debt service and see that we've still got a property that we can hold on to, because if you can hold on to a property during bad times, it eventually hits that ramp that goes back up to the top of the hill. So we want to make sure we're around when things go bad.
Yeah. So it sounds like part of this conservative underwriting is historic rent growth, making sure your debt is fixed so that has no variable change in it whatsoever.
Right.
And you can count on that, being a fixed cost moving forward.
Yep.
And then making sure that you're doing a, stress test on, hey, what happens if we drop to 70%? Can we still make it, right? What happens if this happens? And just trying to do some contingency plans throughout the pro forma to make sure that, hey, does it still hold up if something goes super south on us?
Yeah, and if the numbers don't bear out, our choice is drop the project or increase the equity. A lot of times we'll raise more equity to make sure we've got a bigger cushion. And of course we put builder's contingency and overhead and things like. We try to have a lot of cushion in there because stuff just goes wrong. You can imagine what COVID did to the projects we had ongoing. That stretched out a 20-month process to 34 months. And so, loans start to amortize loans start to amortize before you've got people in there leasing units, and buildings are built slower because of supply lines and things like that. So it's nice when you've got some extra contingency because costs do go up unexpectedly.
Yeah, no, definitely. So do you guys buy land, build, develop, stabilize, and then liquidate, or do you guys hold it? What's your strategy there on the exit?
Yes, we do both. And although if you look at us over the last couple of years, you would think we were merchant builders because we sold most everything that was available for sale. And that's just because cap rates just compressed like crazy, and we were getting offers that, you do the time value of money equation, and our investors were going to have to wait 15 years to get the value out of it. So we sold a lot of stuff. But typically we will work with some partners who are merchant builders, and our plan is to sell that property in 3, 4, 5 years. Occasionally, we typically have agreements with them that if we really like that property, we'll be the buyer. We'll recap them and keep our investors in the deal, or we sell it outright. I prefer to hold them because of the tax ramifications, but sometimes sometimes money's money, and you can find a way to shelter those taxes. Other times it's the typical build, stabilize, cash flow, and then refinance when the equity delta gets big enough to refinance, do a cash out refinance, and just hold it long term. So we prefer to hold more long term than we have over the last few years.
Yeah, no, definitely. You mentioned you like to hold for the tax ramifications.
Yeah.
What are one or two tax strategies that you guys are using with these development deals?
Yeah, nothing fancy. We certainly we do. Once we've got our certificate of occupancy, we do a cost segregation study, so that and we get our bonus depreciation, which is 80% this year. But you're always still getting accelerated depreciation, so we always run the most aggressive depreciation schedule we can. So most of what cash flow that comes off these properties, and it comes off pretty low early on, especially these days. You don't start cash flowing a development until late year 2, more likely early year 3, and it's sometimes mid to low single digits. That's kind of how things start out. So we cash flow that, and that's pretty well sheltered with the depreciation. And then, if we hold these long enough and rent growth continues at a nice normal pace and amortization does its thing, there's, all of a sudden there's enough of a delta where we can do a cash out refinance, which we distribute out. In our company, we distribute that out 100% to the investors until they're made whole. And as you know, being a tax kind of guy, loans are not subject to taxes. So any tax on that money is deferred until such time that we sell that property, if we ever sell it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On the exit, how do you guys handle the capital gains tax?
Yeah, I can talk personally. Our investors, we kind of give them some advice, but and I know I know the DST is an option, which I could learn a lot from you on the DST. Personally, I usually have losses carried forward. I've been in the real estate game. I've always got some kind of depreciation coming in from somewhere, and so I can offset a good bit of that. I was bragging for the last 5 years. I haven't paid taxes for 4 years and made pretty reasonable income. But transparently, I decided this year, with the potential opportunities coming up, that I didn't want to buy in the current market and tie that money up. So I paid taxes for the first time in 5 years this year. So, but I got that cash now, so I'm ready if there's an opportunity that shows up.
Yeah, there you go. Interesting. Yeah. So one of the things, do you guys raise capital?
Yeah.
Your found company, the Rich Doctor education platform for, I'm assuming, doctors, at least, probably for everybody, but but doctors, right, in the name. Coming in that want to get educated on how to do some of these things and then invest in some of these deals that you guys have.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, we kind of got two play, my company, Presario Ventures, that's the company that does all the development. And we've been at it for, like I said, 20 years or so. And so we founded that on the premise of education anyway, that's what raising money is. You just educate people on what's available, what's out there, the reasons for doing things like that. If it fits somebody's parameters, they'll say, hey, can I be part of that? So that's how I feel. That's what I feel raising money is. The Rich Doctor platform came about a little bit later, and primarily purely education. And some of those folks, they'll invest in deals in my company, and they'll invest in deals in other people's companies. It's really designed to kind of help people understand where risks are, how to evaluate sponsors, how to evaluate deals, how to think about money and taxes outside in real estate and in other asset classes beyond real estate.
Yeah. How many of these people come in and they have $1031 that you're kind of like,
no? We've had that question a lot, and we've never set up our projects at Presario where 1031 could come in. So yeah, we do get that question, and we're unable to help those folks, to be honest.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into this whole thing. You mentioned the Deferred Sales Trust, or the DST, which is not to be confused with a Delaware statutory trust, which is that's basically a 1031 into a REIT.
Yep.
But the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing vehicle that will allow you as an operator to not only defer the tax for yourself and potentially your LPs and your other GPs, on the sale of your assets, but also for capital that's coming in, because they're not having to do a 1031. They can just go right into your deals without having to do this whole 1031 thing.
Nice.
And so it's a super powerful strategy that allows you to capitalize on these, dollars that could be there, but, are not. I can't tell you how many syndicators I've asked, hey, how much money have you left on? It's millions.
Yep.
And it's just like, it's such a thing. So the Deferred Sales Trust is a fantastic tool for that, because it's not a 1031. Not everyone has to go with you, right? If you try to 1031 one of your syndications right now, it'd be really difficult to do.
Yeah. And I think personally, there's a lot to learn there. I've kind of scratched the surface of DSTs, and would rather sit down with someone like you for a good hour and learn about these things. So they're powerful. They're powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a phenomenal strategy. And to that point, right, if you guys want, we have a mastermind that's every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and learn more about that. But yeah, it's a phenomenal strategy, and it provides a ton of value to a lot of developers and syndicators, because sometimes, some of these developers that we're talking to they're developing, but they have to classify their projects as inventory.
Yep.
So some of them don't even get to, have the option to do a 1031 out of it, and it's like coming in at ordinary income and all this stuff. And, obviously you can do your cost seg studies and stuff like that to offset some of that, but
right.
It works really well for developers in that sense as well.
Yeah, that's real powerful. All right, offline, we're going to talk about this.
Offline, we'll have to talk about this. So, Tom, where can people find you?
So easiest way, just go to richdoctor.com, and it's easy to get a hold of me there. Or I always tell folks, if you really want to get a hold of me, just send an email to tom@richdoctor.com. I make it easy. Website's got some free gifts for folks, things that have helped me out over the last 30 years or so to kind of get where I got, wherever that is. So always happy to talk to folks and find out what their stories are.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And we're kind of coming up on our time here, but what is one or two, best pieces of advice you could give somebody who's kind of maybe just starting to get into this real estate game, or, is kind of freaking out about the market right now, or?
Yeah. I always tell people first, three things. And this is, the first one's going to sound like self-help seminar, but you really got to figure out kind of why you're doing this. Of course you want the money, but go a level or so deeper to find out why you want the money, what you plan on doing with that and with your life. Then get some education. And there's millions of ways to get the education. Obviously, this podcast is one. There's podcasts. There's all kinds of feeds you can get that can come into you on the things that you're interested on. There's seminars you can go to. And then, which leads into the third thing, which I think is vitally important for all of us, particularly if you're new. Get around people that are going the same direction you're going or have already been to where you want to go. That's where you're going to find out what you don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. So get around those people. You'll get motivation. You'll get ideas. You'll find partners. You'll find people to invest with, or people to invest in your deals. It's the most powerful thing. And then finish it up with number 4, which I didn't pref, but just don't quit. Persistence is the best success and real estate hack in the world. Just learn from your mistakes, keep going, get back up, and dust yourself off. That it'll happen. We overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5 years, according to Peter Drucker. So just keep at it and you'll be successful.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Tom. And if you guys want to learn more, go to richdoctor.com or send Tom an email at tom@richdoctor.com. Connect with him there if you guys are interested in some of the deals that he's got going on and interested in potentially investing with him. Go check that place out. And if you want to learn more about the Deferred Sales Trust, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Sign up for our mastermind every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a great place to come, learn, build community, ask your questions, get to know, like, and trust, all that good stuff. It's a phenomenal platform for that. So thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, it's not having a clear plan that's the enemy, and using proven tax deferral strategies such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets, tax deferred, so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Tom, thanks again so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.